That was July 2013.
Okay. So that magazine comes out in about April, right? It's a
Yep.
little early time. So um, around Christmas time of 2012, I begin to have those thoughts. The hypothetical. It's funny how you cachet it nowadays, but it's the what ifs. What would that look like? And again, for new My World listeners, at this time, I'm still the single largest shareholder of TNA Entertainment. And like you said, my baby, if you will. And so there was a ton of mixed emotions. And can we right this ship? What is Viacom's outlook really going to be? What's the temperature on everything? Um, how are we going to get this thing back cranking out money? Because when Impact was taken on the road, when we took it out at Universal Studios Orlando and took it on the road, that was a massive, massive, massive financial drain. And it didn't improve the ratings at all. Not saying that it should or would have, but actually they trailed down a little bit starting in 2013. And so, Conrad, I'll just say this: into 2012, beginning of 2013 is when I really started at after a couple of discussions with Toby in that and understanding Toby and his team. And when I say team, it is advisors, attorneys, financial guys that he vets everything that comes across, every investment that comes across his desk. We transitioned from being drinking buddies and partying buddies and me going to his shows, and he would drop by wrestling events. And I think I mentioned this. He actually back in the early days came to a few Asylum shows and snuck in the back door. But our relationship begin to transform in a very positive way into investor, an investor type mentality, in that I knew that I had to start creating documentation. And what is the real story here? And I just don't need to tell the story of 2012. Let's go back and really tell it from 2007. So I started compiling as much data as I could. And it was end of February, early March was when the original agreement, if you will, between me and Toby, and what I had to do. And, I had to get attorneys because, Conrad, I had to be very careful because, again, I'm an owner and I have to proceed on the best way to navigate a potential acquisition. And so NDAs had to be signed. And so end of February, March of 2013 is when the original NDAs were signed between Jeff Personal, Panda Energy International or Ventures or whatever it may be, and TNA Entertainment. All of those were signed during that time frame, and that's when the data drops began to exchange. That me and my guys could really start putting together the numbers on what the picture looked like, the valuation, what it had been, what it was currently, and what the projections, what it could be. Of course, lots of things what it could be were up in the air at the time. So that's kind of the route that we headed on in 2013. Again, not knowing the landscape at all in Dallas or Nashville on how it was going to be received. But I felt in 2013, early 2013, that at the very least, radical change had to take place, or I didn't see us surviving.
How was it received? Did you broach this subject of what if I bought it to Bob and I got the money together to Bob? Is that the way it's pitched, or is it not that straightforward?
No, the original thing, being very diplomatic of the whole family dynamic in that situation, is that my attorney contacted Panda's attorney, and it was very well received. Completely understood. Hey, let's take a look at this from all options. There wasn't any, hey, and this is where, people are like, oh, what'd you offer him or this or that? It wasn't any of that. It was, hey, is there a deal to be done here? Bringing Toby Keith in as a strategic partner it has a lot of value in a lot of ways. Let's take a look at that. And it was really received. I can't tell you how excited I was in February, March. And you know, and I knew that there was a family dynamic, and out of that situation, I learned because it was a set of circumstances that I wasn't going to get in the middle of that family dynamic, if at all possible, and I stayed out of it. They informed Dixie. It was a month and a half, 2 months into it. Not till Easter weekend did they inform her that NDAs had been signed. You know, on the one hand, I don't think it was received real well because it was maybe done behind her back. But that wasn't my
intent.
It wasn't my, no, it wasn't my job. I was told specifically by my attorney, you let Bob and Janice handle that.
Yes.
And they did. And they did. And so that's when the balls began to start going. And it was a better part of late spring, or, you know, or early summer, that again, Toby's touring. His tour cranks up every March, April. You know, he tours in the summer. So going out and visiting him, getting numbers, going to Lexington, going to Oklahoma, you know, figuring out that whole deal. And I'm still doing my day job. So it was a slow, steady progress. But at the end of the day, we were navigating the waters on how can we, you know, again, there was never a defined deal that we said, take it or leave it. It was, new management needs to be put in place.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because it's often been said that you got the cash lined up to buy TNA. So at first, it's not necessarily, you know, we're going to rebrand it as Global Force. It's, hey, let us get our arms around the thing and take the reins back. So you've sort of laid it out that Toby was going to be your guy. There were lots of other rumors at the time. Let's just talk about those rumors at the time. Did you have a conversation with Paul Heyman at all about this?
No.
Did you have a conversation with Jim Ross that included a visit to Toby Keith about this?
So they're both Oklahoma boys.
Yes.
And Jim, through, I mean, just, I don't say social, but Toby and Jim absolutely had conversations about all of it that I wasn't a part of. But Toby, he respects Jim, who wouldn't, and, you know, wanted to kind of get his take on the whole deal. But no Paul Heyman, but Toby and JR definitely had conversations. And being two Okies, you know, Toby came to me and said, well, what do you think? And I said, it's Jim Ross. Is he really going to be available? What's the real reality of the situation? But not just, yeah, hell yeah, I'd love for him to be a part of it if at all possible. And Toby's laid back, simple mentality was, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, won't we? Yes, sir. That was his mindset.
So, you know, I hate to put you in a bad spot here. So answer however you think you should. I know you always do, but I just feel like I have to put that disclaimer here. This data dump means that you had access to all of the, for lack of a better word, impact financials. And I'm not to say that, you know, as the largest shareholder that you didn't have access to that, but hey, it's kind of somebody else's job at that point to keep up with it. And I'm sure you had access when you requested it, but now this is a different thing. You're going to have all of the data for quote unquote discovery or due diligence or whatever you want to call it. And at this point, you can really see where the rubber meets the road. What caught you by surprise the most? What, when you really dug into the numbers and you dug into the books and you could see the nitty gritty, warts and all, if you will, what surprised you the most?
And this is something that this type of level of conversation, I had never been, it was just, it was new ground to me, but the players that involved in Dallas and Toby's team had done it all the time. I mean,
Right.
this was all this. And so they knew that, hey man, what you just said, who cares what the warts are? Let's get it all on the table and discuss it and figure it out, because moving forward, there's no sense of doing I got you. That always comes out, because we never ever discussed the Carter's out. It was always, you guys stay in as much as you possibly want to under the deal structure, essentially, predicated by what Toby wants. Toby was the one that was willing to put up, and be the lead horse across the board. And so that's where I went to work and tried to really drill down. But what surprised me the most, the amount of payables.
What was still outstanding, or what was being paid on a monthly basis?
No, yeah. What was in the IOU list.
Right. I got you.
Yeah.
So the bills had stacked up.
The bills. Yes. Yeah. That I again, what you just kind of said, me doing international and live events, I'm more on the revenue side. I'm creating revenue. Dallas is paying bills.
That's right.
And it wasn't anything that I was putting my head in the sand about. It just wasn't my role.
Right.
But that was, I don't want to I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but Conrad, my head spun on several of them.